drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston. A little bit discouraged because I just recorded this entire episode sitting here at midnight in Orlando after a back-to-back road trip where I just flew from New York. Not to complain, but I did realize that I recorded the whole podcast on mute. So had to sit here for about 5 minutes and just question why I'm so bad at technology. And here we are running this back, recapping not just the Celtics' loss to the Magic today, but also a 2-game road trip that puts them in position to still be one of the best road teams of all time, but they do not tie the Warriors mark from the 2015-2016 season. They lose by 20 to the Orlando Magic. Tonight, on a game that meant a lot to the Magic for their standings, they clinched the number 7 seed. Meanwhile, the Celtics on the other side weren't playing for anything except for a chance to tie some history, and they elect to rest their top 6 players. Al Horford didn't even make the trip. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis are all in the building, and they just rest on the second night of back-to-back after an overtime thriller against the New York Knicks that everybody played some extensive minutes in. They flew from New York to Orlando. They landed at 4:30 in the morning and come out here and try to play a very hungry, very motivated Magic team, and it did not go great tonight. Nothing to panic about. I think different guys had moments of flashes of promise, but overall, this is the kind of game where you hope that somebody has a breakthrough moment, and nobody was really able to do that. I look at the lineup. They started tonight: Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Luke Kornet, Torrey Craig, and Baylor Shireman, and all of those guys are capable of having a big performance, and nobody really had a massive one off the bench. I was hoping that J.D. Davison was going to have a good game. G League MVP. His season just came to an end in the Eastern Conference Finals loss, and he struggled in his minutes as well. He was 0 of 6 from the field in 16 minutes. If you look at the numbers, they're pretty tough across the board. Celtics shoot just 7 of 40 from 3, 17% from beyond the arc in the loss, so that's not going to get you many wins. Also had 15 turnovers, 8 of which came in the first quarter, and that was kind of hard for them to overcome as well. And then you look at the guys that have been kind of reliable bench contributors for you. Peyton Pritchard's 1 of 7 from 3. Baylor Shireman's 1 of 7 from 3. Sam Hauser's 2 of 8 from 3. So those are all guys that were shooting above 40% from 3 over the last 5 weeks. And you needed those guys to be on, and nobody really had it today. And some of it's probably fatigue. Some of it's just the spacing and the chemistry. And these aren't guys that are as used to playing with one another as many other combinations that we've seen. Pritchard finishes the game with 15 points and 10 assists. Shireman adds 15. Luke has 14. Sam Hauser with 10. Neemias Queta with 11 off the bench. I think the post players are probably the lone bright spot in this one. Luke Kornet, 7 of 10 from the field. Neemias Queta, 4 of 6. But guard play was difficult. And just in general, they were totally outmatched by a Magic team that I was pretty impressed by their physicality. They're just, they wanted to win this game. And I think they were looking at a Celtics team that were resting their top 6 players. They thought to themselves, we're going to win this game. And they want home court advantage in the play-in, and now they have home court advantage in the play-in. And so that was good to see, Celtics compete. I thought that they fell down by 20 early, and they clawed back in, made it a game at the half, but we're just outmatched in this one. And as I said, nothing to be concerned about. I'm not going to ever freak out about a loss where you're resting your top 6 guys at the end of the season after a great regular season. But it's more just what could have been. I was hoping to see quintessential J.D. Davison, breakthrough moment, a guy that's been on the fringes of the NBA for 3 seasons. I was hoping to see him get that opportunity. I was hoping to see maybe Baylor Shireman has a special performance. Maybe Peyton Pritchard goes for 50. That's what this game could have been as somebody who was looking for the story, as a reporter. And this one didn't really have much of a story. I think the story in this one was they were tired and nobody really had it. And post-game, we were asking Joe Mazzulla a bunch of questions. We were asking him about, I asked him, is there a certain level of, you tell the guys before the game not to put too much pressure on this one individually, guys that are fighting to be in the league. And he said, I'm never going to tell guys not to feel pressure. They're playing for the Celtics and they're trying to play for NBA minutes. We were asking him a bunch of questions about kind of his message, what he liked, what he didn't like. And at one point he was like, guys, like, I appreciate the creative questions, but like, what are we doing here? Because we landed here at 4:30 in the morning. Like he didn't really want to entertain this game being dissected too seriously. And obviously that's our jobs. As a reporter, it's kind of like, well, you made the trip out to Orlando, you're interviewing players, you're interviewing coaches. You have to kind of find what matters about this game. But that was Joe Mazzulla's message, and ultimately, I kind of get it. I get what he was saying. I felt like we did. I did feel like the reporters that were in the room were trying their best to ask thoughtful questions about a game that was a little bit challenging. 76 points. They shot 39% from the field. Like I said, 17% from three. These are not numbers that we're used to seeing, and the biggest reason is just who was available for them. And so I'm not going to spend too much time in this game. I'll just say Peyton Pritchard is one guy that we spoke to afterwards, and he took some of the ownership for the loss on his shoulders. He said, that there are moments that he could have been a better leader. There were runs that the Magic had that he felt like he could have kind of organized the group to respond to. And that's why I think these games do matter. He said 100% he's taking things away from this. That's a guy that's, obviously become hugely impactful for Boston. And nights like tonight, he wasn't terrible. Like I said, he did finish with 15 and 10. But he didn't have a big time performance that you needed from him if they were going to be competitive tonight. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I will say, had they won this game, they would have tied the Warriors' 2016 record for most road wins in a single season, 34 wins. Instead, they finished the year 33-8 on the road. Still remarkable. Still one of the best road records of all time. Entering this game, they were outscoring opponents by 10 points per game on the road, which was second of all time to just the 1972 Lakers. And that really stood out as something that just has become their identity. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I've been on the road with this team almost all year, and it really has stood out at their core just how much they've embraced the challenge of playing in away arenas, of traveling, of getting from one destination to the next. So I'm not going to say much more about this game. I will say, because I wasn't able to record a podcast yesterday, because at Madison Square Garden, they have a rule where they kick out all the media within 2 hours of when the coach's press conference ends, which would have been hours ago by now for me, because I'm sitting here in Joe's seat. They're probably halfway home already to Boston. So my technical difficulties forced me to be here a little bit later, unfortunately. But in this case, I think you're sensing that this, they kind of hit a wall with just the personnel. But overall, I've been so impressed with their ability to win on the road. And I'll talk a little bit about last night's game because I wasn't able to do so. The things that I found most encouraging was just, it reminded me last year I was in Atlanta in the spring. That was one of my first road games ever. And they lost both games to the Hawks. And both of them were late game collapses, really bad crunch time offense. I think Tatum missed a handful of potential go-ahead shots. And there was this really strong prevailing narrative around this team being like, they just can't, in the clutch, they're just no good. You don't have faith in them. You have faith in other teams. They don't have the DNA. They don't have the clutch factor. Tatum's not clutch. Like, they don't know what they're doing. Mazzulla doesn't know what he's doing. Like, that was the discourse. And going into the postseason, they were so historically dominant. Their point differential was one of the best of all time. They were so ahead of the rest of the league with their record that this was the one stain. This was the one question about the Celtics team. But here we are 1 year later, and it's really the least of my concerns. And that just because you're a good clutch time team doesn't mean you're going to win every game, right? That we know that that's not the case. We know that making tough shots, and there's a lot of tough shot makers in this league, and even the clutchest players miss most of their game-winning attempts. But it's definitely something that I'm encouraged by. And last night, the Knicks had lots of big plays down the stretch. They actually outscored the Celtics 14-4 at the end of regulation there. But still, when you go back and you think about this game, the things that stand out to me is Jason Tatum's ability to, one, draw a foul, a three-point foul, and hit two of the three shots, which obviously you want to hit all three, but just to put yourself in position to draw that foul in Karl-Anthony Towns with under a minute to play in a game you're trailing by three was big. And then he misses the free throw and he comes right back and he hits a three to tie the game after Josh Hart scored on the other side. So that was just big time from him, and a clutch shot, and not just the fact that he made it, but also the separation that he was able to create with one of the really elite forwards and defenders in the league, OG Anunoby, guarding him. Big time play. In overtime, it was Kristaps Porzingis who made a big time play. I thought Porzingis was instrumental in this game in general. 8 threes against the Knicks, 8 of 13. lots of deep ones. He's one of the, his 3-point attempts are some of the farthest of any NBA player this season. And he's actually shooting a career high from three, something that's kind of flown under the radar, above 41% from three on the season. And I think part of why it's flown under the radar is because a lot of other guys have struggled. Drew Holiday had his stretch where he was really struggling from three. Jaylen Brown, obviously, everybody talked about his 3-point struggles. Jason Tatum's shooting one of the worst seasons from three in his career. But Porzingis has kind of helped balance things out. Against the Knicks, he was huge. And no shot was bigger than the one that came with 40 seconds to play in overtime, where he caught it from the logo with 7 seconds on the shot clock, attempted a deep three. I remember when he was taking it, I was like, what is he doing? And then hits it and actually was fouled, as the last 2 minutes report today showed that Jalen Brunson did indeed foul him. So Porzingis, massive in the win against New York, has his big clutch moment. Jason Tatum has his big clutch moment. And the Celtics as a whole, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they wanted. It wasn't perfect. They had some turnovers in overtime. They had some late game defensive lapses. But Joe didn't call the timeout. That's been a hallmark characteristic of his tenure as a coach for the Celtics, that down the stretch, he'd rather have the guys be able to go against the defense that isn't set, against the defense that hasn't been able to sub out any liabilities. And it worked out against New York. A win that I think is a big-time win because they were able to sweep the season series. And everybody told us post-game it doesn't mean anything. They're not going to walk away with extra confidence because of it. But still a welcome sign that they were able to close out even a game where they were struggling early on. So they're one and one on this road trip. I don't know how seriously they're going to take the remaining 2 home games here. They have 2 games coming up against the Charlotte Hornets, Friday night and Sunday afternoon. So I don't know if they're going to rest guys or not. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Jaylen after the break. Just want to send a quick message from our friends over at PrizePicks.
PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Springtime is here, baseball season is underway, and don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your PrizePicks lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first-inning runs. Take your pick more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what do you think, Ohtani? Get more than 1 home run this week? Soto, more than 1 hit? LeBron James, more or less than 25 points? Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
So it's inevitable that everybody wants to hear about Jaylen. I'm just going to say I'm not going to talk about it too much because I think that I've talked about him at a bunch of these podcasts and I've talked about him on a lot of our post-game shows. And he's just been a big topic of discussion, and understandably so, because ultimately Jaylen Brown is critical to this team. He's clearly not at 100%, and he's clearly fighting through something. And there's a big discussion around whether he should have been sitting, whether he should be playing, whether he is only doing this because he wants to play 65 minimum games to be eligible for All-NBA, which he's most likely not going to make anyways from what I've seen as far as media's mock All-NBA drafts. But I'm just going to say very succinctly what my thoughts are on the situation. Number one, there is a huge absence of information that we're all working with. Therefore, a lot of this feels very speculative. I think people are worried that he's making the knee worse. Kristaps Porzingis said after the win against the Knicks that, he has this warrior mentality, but do we really need a warrior mentality right now? Maybe he should just take care of himself. That was maybe the most alarming line I think that everybody heard, because everybody's thinking if Porzingis is telling him to sit, that's probably where what he should be doing. I personally I'm not overly concerned about the should he sit, should he play thing, because I'm really just more curious what he actually has going on. If it's just a knee bruise, the way he's talked about it, the way it's been discussed, it feels like something a little bit more substantial than that. Again, totally speculative here. The biggest thing for me is how they're going to manage this in the postseason. If he's a defensive liability, are they able to just take him out of the equation? Is he going to be a defensive liability? Is there a treatment plan that they're going to be able to put in place between now and the playoffs, the next 10 days, to really kind of help him be more pain-free and more effective. And he's alluded to that a couple of times, that he's banking on feeling better in the postseason and that the medical staff has things lined up. So I don't have like a strong take in either direction. I'll just say he was questionable for this game. People were freaking out about it online, freaking out that he's playing through pain and jeopardizing his future and all that. He warms up. He is a scratch after that. I don't know if it's because of how he felt during warmups or if that was always the plan and he just went through warmups anyways. I'm really not sure. He wasn't on the bench during this game, but that's pretty normal for him. I think he oftentimes watches these games from the locker room. But overall, certainly something we're going to be monitoring down the stretch here, the final 2 games of the regular season. Definitely going to be something that is a priority, is just his health. But the one thing that I've maintained and the one thing that I've kind of kept in mind throughout this whole period of time is that Jaylen Brown is important, and the Celtics are going to need him. And I don't want to downplay at all what he's been able to do for this team and what he would be able to do again if he's healthy during a postseason run. But this is just the nature of how things go. This is how the playoffs work. Teams stumble to the finish line. Teams get to April, and everybody's dealing with things. And right now, they're in pretty good shape if you look across the board. Jason Tatum had an ankle sprain. Everybody was worried that was going to be a big deal. He recovers from that pretty well. Misses 1 game, comes back, looks to be completely himself. Jrue Holiday, mouth finger. Everybody was worried maybe that's going to really compromise him. Instead, he's shot better than ever with the mouth finger. He seems to totally have embraced what he has going on there. Kristaps Porzingis, he dealt with the illness, the leg injuries early on. He's healthy right now. After New York, he said, he's not at 100% with the wind, with the getting his, respiratory everything back together, but that he thinks a couple of days of rest will be great. I just asked Peyton Pritchard. He was out. He missed 1 game with a hip strain. That's something that you could see him on the broadcast, even in person. He was wincing a little bit. He said that's gone. So you're going down the line here. Al Horford's been super dependable this season. Derek White's recovered from his foot sprain. So everybody, the things that hampered them, they're in good shape. And there's one guy that's dealing with something, and he's not a zero. He's available, but he's compromised. And as you look around the league, a lot of teams are in this position. It's not an excuse, and it is something to worry about, but it's kind of just the nature of playing a year of basketball with a bunch of guys that are taking a toll on their body night in and night out. So I just want to contextualize the Jaylen Brown thing, because I think it's important to recognize that it's not just, Celtics are not the only team that are seeing a star player be in a precarious situation. I think what people are not used to seeing is somebody play through pain, and we just don't have enough information to know if that's detrimental or not. And maybe it is. He's filming a Netflix documentary right now, Starting 5. Maybe when that comes out, we're going to see what they were telling him behind closed doors and what the medical staff was saying and all that. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on the Jaylen Brown piece, and certainly his health and his ability to be impactful for this team, especially on the defensive end, is going to be critical down the stretch here. Last thing I wanted to talk about is just my experience covering this team on the road this past season. First and foremost, really appreciate everybody that's tuned into these podcasts on the road, everybody that's read my Celtics notebooks on Celtics blog, everybody that's followed along to my coverage on Twitter /X, or read my stories, my features on Celtics blog. It goes a long way to allowing me to continue to do this, obviously, because if there's no readers, there's no viewers, there's no job, there's not me here. So thank you all for listening and watching the season. This is the first year that I was able to be on the road. This is the first year that I was able to have locker room access and actually be able to be in the building and be kind of in all these places. It's much different when I was mostly watching road games from television last year until the postseason. I didn't have locker room access at all last year. And so all of it has been really, really impactful for me and allowed me to better understand what it actually means to be an NBA player, what it means to be on the road, what it means to play in back-to-backs. I can't say that I have any idea of what it's like to actually have to go do a post-game lift and then get on a flight and then deal with all these ailments and then land and have to run it all back. But I will say, just as somebody who's writing about this team and talking about this team, like right now it's Thursday night at midnight and I'm sitting here in the media room in Orlando and flying back tomorrow, and I flew yesterday and I flew this morning and I landed here from New York, and it takes a toll and it's exhausting, and you have to, I just recorded an entire podcast on mute probably because I just overworked and kind of just been in this journey of covering this team night in and night out. So I can't imagine how the players feel. Sometimes you wonder, like, why do they lay a goose egg? And they haven't laid a lot of goose eggs this year. But being here has furthered my understanding and given me a little bit more compassion to kind of like how much mental sharpness it takes to be able to come out and execute against high level teams all the time. And it's been really impressive what they've been able to do. I can count on one hand the road losses that I can even remember. There was the Lakers second night of a back-to-back. There was this one second night of a back-to-back. It's felt like everywhere I've gone, they've been able to put together these really strong games. It's even hard to fathom like a loss like tonight. I kept thinking to myself like they're gonna win because they always win on the road. That's what it feels like. And they're good at home. Don't get me wrong, but if you look at the top 5 teams in the East, they don't stand out. Their home record doesn't stand out. It's very similar to the Pacers and the Bucks and the Knicks and all those guys. The road is what's made them different, and it's what made them special. And I can sense it when you're in the building, when you're in the locker room. There's a level of focus that you can just feel. This level of intensity that the guys are playing with. I've talked to a lot of the road fans. It's been a fascinating part of all this. I have some more stories coming out about the road fans in the coming days here. But everywhere they've gone, there's been hundreds of Celtics fans on the road, thousands of Celtics fans on the road. Tonight, it felt like 85% Celtics fans, honestly. And it's just been really fascinating to see. It's been really fascinating to see just kind of how it's played out, how much they feed off the crowd, how little pressure in a way they feel. And everybody's kind of downplayed the road thing. They didn't tie the all-time record because they kind of, I don't want to say they punted this game, but they rested their top 6. But Joe has acknowledged this has become a part of their identity, and you could really feel it being in the building, being around this team. You know, I'm not flying on the team plane. I wish I was. I would feel like make my travel a lot easier. And I'm not staying at the team hotel, but from the times that I've been around, whether it's shoot around, how locked in everybody is, whether pregame, postgame, it's just methodical. And your access is better on the road. It's a big part of why I made it a priority to be around the team this season and to make the trips and to kind of expend all those resources and to do that. But at the same time, you just see how much it takes to keep things going, from the player development staff to the scouts to all the medical staff that travel with them to the cook and everything. And it's just a massive operation. And so to finish the year 33-8, away from home, it's highly unusual. Entering this game, they have the second best point differential in NBA road game history. It was a really remarkable feat that they were able to achieve. And I think if people had thought about this going into the year, for this team to have 59 wins right now and to be able to potentially win 61 if they win the 2 games against the Hornets, despite all the injuries, despite the championship hangover, despite that 6-week stretch where they were really looking to be not a great basketball team and everybody was struggling individually, and obviously the things that Jaylen's gone through this year, and Drew had his fair share of injuries, and Kristaps Porzingis' mysterious illness that we never figured out. Like, they dealt with a lot, and they're still in a position right now where I think they're one of the favorites to compete for a championship. But that's all you can ask for, because ultimately they're going to need help. They're going to need things to go their way. They're going to need lucky breaks. They're going to need guys to step up and hit big shots. And there's 2 other great teams in the league, and there's plenty of other teams that can become great if everything clicks. And Oklahoma City right now definitely stands at the top to me as far as their biggest threat. But it's been an encouraging season, I think. And I think that if you had looked in January and said this is where they're going to be in 3 months, people would have been really positively encouraged. So shout out to all of you guys for following along. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to be able to cover this team this season. And not to call this is not the end of the year pod. I'm going to do podcasts after the home games. I'm going to do podcasts throughout the entire postseason, obviously. This was my second go. Hopefully it was worth it. Hopefully I recorded this time. If I end this podcast and my voice did not record, I don't even know how I'm going to react. I'm not recording it a third time, so hopefully it recorded. But thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. Feel free to read the rest of my coverage on CelticsBlog.com. I have notebooks. I'm going to have more writing there as well. And I appreciate it. I really do. You can subscribe to You Got Boston podcast everywhere you listen to your podcasts, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that. And I'll be back with more very soon.